passwords to voting machines posted online still haven't all been changed, so the state is bringing in more IT experts and private jets to fly them to counties across Colorado.
We are lending some of our state planes to get to the offices with the clerks.
Voters will decide whether to allocate more state funding to support police agencies across the state. We take a look at what it would cost. Speaking of money, how much would it cost to ban cell phones in schools? More than you might think.
I totally get it. It's a huge problem in a public schools, and that's another reason.
A new trail's opening was delayed because Boulder County Open Space gave a hoot.
They run across the landscape and they have long legs and they look funny.
And for Halloween, I put on the ugliest sport coat I own and dressed up as Kyle Clark, because this is next. Leaked passwords to Colorado voting machines are still being changed tonight. It's now been 1 week since Democratic Secretary of State Jena Griswold learned that one of two passwords needed for each voting machine were inadvertently posted online. Democratic Governor Jared Polis has now provided 3 state airplanes and IT staff to help get those passwords changed. It's caught the attention of the Trump campaign. Today, they sent a letter to Griswold's office with several demands. One is for machines with new passwords to be reformatted. They also want county clerks to stop scanning mail-in ballots and rescan them after the computers are reformatted. Griswold's office just responded to Trump within the last 30 minutes. They told him there is no threat to the security of Colorado's voting systems or the 2024 election. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger spoke with the governor about how the impacts with voter confidence.
Would you support that?
Here is the really good news about Colorado, Marshall. We have paper ballots, and if people aren't happy with how they are counted, they can be counted again and again. So, and people have to pay for the recount. It's not on the taxpayers. It doesn't cost a fortune.
Democratic Governor Jared Polis sidestepped demands sent from the Trump campaign to Democratic Secretary of State Jena Griswold. He said if someone doubts the election results, they can pay for a recount, which is allowed under state law. Voting machine passwords were hidden on a tab that could be unhidden online. The password issue was known by Griswold for 5 days, and then it became public. Before she told clerks and before she started to change passwords. It's the latest gaffe by Griswold's office. In 2022, her office sent voter registration mailers to 30,000 non-citizens who are ineligible to vote. That same year, her office incorrectly notified voters who had turned in their ballots that they had not yet voted. Would it instill more confidence in Colorado's elections if one of her deputies oversaw the election?
Look, well, when I can speak for myself, when we find something out, we make it public. I believe that this situation calls for what I would call radical transparency. Exactly who knew what when, who did what when, be fully transparent.
Polis said 3 state planes and IT staff are being made available to Griswold's office to travel the state and change voting machine passwords. Griswold's office has refused to say which counties have been impacted.
I thought the passwords had been changed. When I found out they hadn't been, I said, well, why not? Because we need help with planes and people. I said, well, let's help you with planes and people. I think what's important here is public confidence. So transparency is part of building that public confidence, as is accountability. Again, how did this happen? What happened? How do we make sure this never happens again, but also other errors like this don't happen again?
For Next, I'm Marshall Zellinger.
It's important to note that Griswold's letter to Trump does not directly address or agree to any of the concerns that the Trump campaign sent to Griswold's office. Now, her office said a civil servant is responsible for putting the spreadsheet online with the passwords hidden in a tab. That person, we're told, is no longer working with the office. Even the governor wanted to know what that means. Were they fired, transferred? What does that mean? Griswold's office told us today that they will not answer any of those questions for us. Now, election security concerns comes in a lot of different ways, like the Postal Service today covering up and removing trash cans at post offices in Colorado Springs. They're trying to stop people from coming in, grabbing their mail, deciding they're not voting, and then immediately throwing the ballots away in a public spot. They're worried about people rummaging through trash cans to get other people's ballots. The post office wants people to just throw their ballot away at home if they're going to do that. To be clear, though, there haven't been any reports of people taking ballots out of those bins. They also wouldn't be able to vote with someone else's ballot because of signature verification procedures that we have here in the state. However, we did hear last week, of course, that at least 3 ballots in Mesa County were counted after around a dozen were stolen from people before they actually received them. Still no update on where that investigation stands right now. A proposition on the ballot would redirect state dollars to local law enforcement agencies. If Prop 130 is approved, it would likely mean cuts to the state budget to help recruit and train officers. Our Kelly Rinke takes a deeper look at this initiative.
Law enforcement agencies across the country took a hit after the pandemic. Staffing levels dropped and crime spiked. Numbers are improving since then, but Colorado still has fewer police officers per capita than it did in the 1990s. Voters in November will decide if Colorado should create a fund to recruit, train, and retain police officers. A yes vote to Prop 130 would direct $350 million in state funding to hire new officers, provide training, or bonus pay. It was put on the ballot by conservative group Advance Colorado. Prop 130 doesn't authorize new taxes, but the allocation would likely mean lawmakers will have to make cuts in the state budget to cover the cost. Voting no on Prop 130 will continue current funding levels for law enforcement agencies. Right now, local police departments are funded through county or municipal dollars. Prop 130 doesn't require lawmakers to set aside the money all at once. It would be handed out over a number of years. Lawmakers are already facing financial problems. Forecasts show Colorado may need to cut around $900 million in spending or dip into reserves to balance the budget next year.
So typically decisions on how to allocate existing funds falls on the lawmakers. They figure out which programs need more cash than others. So this ballot measure is unique. Instead of asking for a tax increase, it requests the state dollars to just be redirected, Mark.
Now, this also gives some money, if it's passed, to families of victims of people who were shot, first responders who were killed in the line of duty.
Yeah, it creates a $1 million one-time payment to families if their loved one was killed in the line of duty, and that $1 million is in addition to any benefits that they receive from the officer's pension.
Interesting. We'll see if it passes. Kelly, thank you. Want to get a look at the weather now with Lauren Robinson. I love your hat. You dressed up way better than I did. That Halloween forecast, how's it looking out there?
Yeah, we're going with Wicked Witch of 9 News. And as we go through the rest of the evening, trick-or-treaters, it's going to be a little chilly, but not unseasonably cold out there. We're going to see those temperatures very on track for this time of year. We had a little bit of sunshine out there. We made it into the low 60s. Now little cloud covers moved in, but we're 51 degrees. Light winds coming in from the south at around 10 miles per hour. As we go through the rest of the evening, we're overall going to stay pretty clear. A little bit of cloud cover here and there, but we have a clear evening ahead, and we're going to see a sunny day tomorrow. Now, as you head out through the rest of this evening, around the hours of now, between 9 p.m., we're going to see those temperatures in the middle 50s through lower 40s. We're going to see mostly clear skies, a little chilly, but calm winds for the most part. So the next few days, temperatures are going to go up a bit before they go back down. So if you're making those weekend plans, we're going to stay pretty sunny and warm through the weekend. We're going to see those temperatures in the lower to middle 60s. Before you go to bed Saturday night, you want to make sure you change that clock. Daylight saving time will end. On Monday, we're looking for a potential impact day here, and that's because we have a system that's going to be coming in by Monday. Right now, the models really aren't in too much in agreement about what that system really looks like here in the Front Range. We are expecting some snow off to the west in the high country, but we're still going to keep an eye out for this potential on Monday. And then as we go through next Thursday, we have our next Avs game that'll be aired here on 9 News and on Channel 20.
Another Colorado man will be heading to prison nearly 4 years after the January 6th insurrection. Littleton man was sentenced today for kicking a police officer as he stormed the Capitol. 51-year-old Patrick Montgomery was convicted of 2 felonies back in March. During the insurrection, Montgomery grabbed an officer's baton and tried to wrestle it away. Then he kicked the officer in the chest. After the scuffle, he went into the Capitol and started yelling in the Senate gallery. Once Montgomery serves his 3-year sentence, he'll have 3 years of probation. Montgomery is one of at least 20 Coloradans charged for crimes related to the insurrection. There's a small town in southwestern Colorado called Rico. You may not have heard of it. Fewer than 300 people live there, but they've been forced to worry about lead contamination in the soil there for a long time. That's all changing now. The contamination in Rico goes back to the late 1800s when silver and lead mining began in the town. Mining continued up until the 1970s when the largest mine shut down. Under this new agreement, the oil company that bought the land near the Dolores River there will pay for the rest of the cleanup to make sure that there isn't any more lead in the contamination. Some of the process requires digging up people's yards with high lead levels, also remove lead-tainted roads. The agreement avoids the EPA forcing mining companies to take action themselves. Back here in Denver, Denver's Civic Center Park is getting a big makeover. It's always been the heart of downtown, as we know, but it hasn't always felt that way. Now the city is pouring in millions of dollars to revitalize the area. They're calling it the Civic Center Next 100 project, no relation to this show. The goal is to make Civic Center Park a space for people that they can use for the next century. They want to flip the amphitheater stage around so people in the audience won't have to look in the sun, install new lighting and sound equipment as well, and make the area ADA accessible. For the promenade, they want to install water and electrical lines along the walkway so that food trucks and shower trucks can easily plug in and people can use them. They also want to plant more trees and some gardens. Construction is expected to start next fall. Last several years, phase 1 of the project cost at least $18 million.
I think we have a plethora of data to say this makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, it's no secret that cell phones can be a big distraction for students in class. Now, school districts are getting money to implement bans. And hikers had to wait a few months to explore a new trail in Boulder to keep these little guys safe. How much will it cost for school districts to ban cell phones? You might think the answer is nothing, just tell the kids to put their phones away. But the real answer is hopefully no more than $50,000. Jaleesa Irizarry explains.
Coloradans don't need a bunch of data to figure out cell phones in schools are a distraction. But maybe they need money to do something about it. The Colorado Attorney General is offering school districts up to $50,000 to implement ways to reduce or ban cell phone use in classrooms, an effort that brings mixed reviews.
I don't send my son in a school with a cell phone for him to play video games. I send him mainly safety reasons.
Maya Smith gets why schools may want to restrict cell phone use, but the thought of banning it altogether worries her, especially when it comes to school threats. Her son already went through a false alarm.
And that time, he did forget his cell phone at home. And the first thing he said, Mom, I couldn't get a hold of you, So he was in a lot of distress. The cell phone, it's more safety and just for me to know where he's at.
The biggest hump is getting parents comfortable to not have immediate instant access to their kids.
Dr. Cheryl Ziegler is a family therapist. She says having access to a cell phone means access to social media and the distractions and mental health risks that come with it. A ban could possibly change that.
My guess would be we would have less bullying, we'd have less aggression, we'd have less unsafe situations for parents to even be concerned about.
A spokesperson with Denver Public Schools says a district-wide ban is not something being considered. Moms like Maya,
oh, absolutely,
hope it stays that way.
The more you ban something, the more it's going to be wanted.
If a district signs up for that grant, the money will go towards paying for different ways to limit cell phone use, like pouches or cell phone storage systems, or even launching programs for responsible cell phone use.
Here I was just thinking that you could say no more cell phones in class. That's free. No, there's actually money that's being used and it goes to certain places. Are there school districts that have already done this? Like, are they following a lead here?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, 27J in Brighton has implemented something like that. They're not banning cell phones completely. They're just encouraging kids to keep them in their lockers. And obviously, if they don't, there's problems there. But there's also other schools on the Western Slope, as well as the Springs, that are actually using those pouches.
There you go. We'll see how that works out for everybody in class. Jaleesa, thank you. We are getting some feedback from several viewers like Craig and Peg and John and Andrew, who are tired of all the negative political ads for Colorado's 8th district that they've been seeing on TV. I hear you, but it also pays all of our salaries. So by the way, we're required by law to air those ads, no matter how controversial that they are. But there's a reason you're seeing nonstop ads for CD8 in particular. It's one of the most competitive House races in the country. So the money is, of course, flowing in on both sides. Democratic candidate Yadira Caraveo's campaign has spent nearly $6 million. Republican Gabe Evans has spent nearly $2 million on those TV ads. And that doesn't include the millions of dollars that PACs and interest groups are spending on the ads. You may have also noticed the ads change as Election Day gets closer. Experts say they tend to get more negative and more aggressive as the campaign goes on.
Do those positive ads help? They absolutely do. The problem is fear is a little bit stronger than affinity, simply because of how it motivates people to behave. And so you see more negative ads.
So unlike everyday commercials that you'll see not on election years, political ads aren't required to back up their claims with facts. That's, of course, why we've been doing so many fact checks. If you still need to vote, want to check out those fact checks, go check them out at 9news.com/truthtest. Marshall has got those covered for you.
They're really fun to watch. They perch on their burrows. They have big yellow eyes looking out at the world.
Watch all you want, but you got to do it from a distance. I will tell you about it next. Hikers don't always have the right of way on trails in Colorado. In fact, a new trail in Boulder was set to open last June until two burrowing owls decided to move in right next door.
Gun Barrel Hill is meant to be an important habitat for local wildlife species. And that includes coyotes, prairie dogs. We see a lot of raptors. But in mid-May, we had burrowing owls move into the area and establish a nest right next to the newly completed Vesper Trail. So burrowing owls are special in this area because they're unusual. They are the only owl species that lives in burrows underground. And in our area, they're almost entirely dependent on prairie dog burrows. And they use those burrows for cover, shelter, and to raise their chicks. It was important to protect them and keep people away and keep the trail closed so they wouldn't be disturbed while they were raising their young. So I would come out a couple times a week to monitor the owls, see how they're doing and the progression of the chicks. They're really fun to watch. They perch on their burrows. They have big yellow eyes looking out at the world. They run across the landscape and they have long legs and they look funny. The newly completed Vesper Trail was slated to open by mid-June, but that opening was delayed until mid-October to protect the nesting burrowing owls. I expect to see them again next year. Our hope is that they will use a part of Gun Barrel Hill that is not close to a public trail.
That's awesome. Hey, we got to work on Halloween, but there's still trick-or-treaters.
Trick-or-treat.
Thank you, Mallory. We're back with your feedback. Special Halloween edition next. The most Colorado thing that we saw today is apparently the most popular Halloween decoration in the state. Skeletons are all the rage this year, it seems, and you made sure that we knew that. We've gotten skeletons doing construction, waiting for the bus, skeletons on a motorcycle, hitting a wheelchair. Skeleton. I mean, Colorado, there are other Halloween decorations out there. If you see something catches your attention, 303-871-1491. Your feedback tonight is all about one thing, or at least one person who is not here. Chris Bianchi, or should I say Crispy Donkey. Today marks the 1-year anniversary of Chris Bianchi coming on our air and dressing up as Crispy Donkey. So if Chris shows up at your door tonight, trick-or-treating, asking for some candy, just give him a couple pieces and ask him about the weather. We'll see you next time.